dust control fan that blew out because it's just not built for what I was using it. Okay, let's talk about that issue, and let me walk you through a couple of ideas based on a lot of really good feedback from people. I am grateful for that because it gets me thinking and gets me driven to try to get this stuff done. So let me walk through the the thing as it lives now, and then two options that I think are on the table. All right, so this is custom built by me just to get by. Right now it's a little small, so I need to make some changes, but we'll get to that. The immediate need is the dust control, which you saw at the beginning of this video. So how this thing works is I've got 3 levels right now. The bottom level is hooked up to a Sawzall. You can see the wires here, it's hidden under here. And what it does is it takes that tray, or that bottom one, and just goes back and forth, right? It's just moving it back and forth to sift the frass through that really fine mesh. These other 2 are manual. I just shake them like this. What I've found is that intermittent shaking is what's necessary. I don't need shaking like what is happening here. I need intermittent shaking because the way the mealworms behave, you pour them in here, I'll shake it to get all the frass through so the frass doesn't get stuck on both levels here. And then I let that guy do its thing. And then on these, every now and then I'll just come and pop it. Because the way that the mealworms are moving, this gets them to help spread out. They then start to kind of hide, go away, run away, and then I'll do that to help move them through a little faster. But intermittent, so maybe like every 10-15 seconds I'll go mess around with that. It would be great to automate that at some point in a simple way, but we'll get there. The bottom here is a frass collection bin. I've got a potential option to put a simple machine in here that will sift that and then empty it down into a container similar to this, maybe a little different, and then auger it out of here automatically. So we'll step to that soon. But for right now, I need to fix this dust issue. So what I had done previously on this side, that right there. So I hooked that up to one of these. Simple, it rolled, it had one bag that it collected in, but this thing died. It worked for maybe a month and a half. We emptied it every time before we started, and then you could hear it start to get clogged. So it's producing a ton of dust, and this thing was exhausting it. It was doing what it was designed to do, but not for the volume I think that I was doing. That's my best guess anyway. I've tried to troubleshoot the machine, swapped out some of the parts. Nothing's working. So I just haven't had the time to mess with it. But I think like what this helped me prove is that it did work. So it was able to pull that dust in. The particulates in the air stayed lower on the Inkbird sensor when I had this thing up and running. The problem is that I think it was just too much for this machine, and I needed the 2-bag system. So let's move to something different now with the idea to replace this item with one of these. So this was recommended to me by an individual. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I had been looking at one of the bigger machines that costs, I want to say it was like $2,000 total shipped to me from Grizzly. Grizzly has said that their machines are not designed for mealworm frass. They're designed for wood, wood dust. I understand that. That's probably a warranty thing. And for $2,000, that gave me a little, I don't know. But this is much more achievable. And what I think this is going to help do is to get the bigger pieces to fall down so that this up here doesn't get clogged as much and doesn't stress the motor out. That's my hope anyway. I still need to do routine maintenance on it and clean it, right? Like 100%. And I think if I'd been doing that with the previous device, it may not have broken. Could be a faulty device. I don't know at this point. But I think I do need one of these. So I can hook that up to that PVC pipe and then get this thing up and running pretty quickly. It's on wheels, I think is what those are. Movable, basically, which is great because I still don't have the precise, complete layout done in here. But I think that this will get me further along. And then regarding like a lot of folks had suggested, you know, like enclosing this somehow, right? And my pushback was that I need to be able to get these trays out. So routinely, like these have no outlets, right? Like once these get filled with the specific levels or volume, with the specific size of what they're sifting, I have to physically lift these out and empty them. right? Same thing with the bottom one. I have to turn everything off, the Sawzall, turn that off, pull that out, and empty it. And so what was recommended is some sort of like plastic on the front with Velcro so that I could easily do that. I think what I'd like to do is probably shore up, instead of that, I think maybe that's a phase 2, but what I'd like to do is shore up the cardboard around to help enclose this a little bit more, because it's gotten a little wear and tear on it. And then, you know, like things on the top here, like I closed off this air intake area, but not this one. So I could close that up too, just to help have less space that the air that's pulling has to pull from. And then hook that machine up and see how that does from a dust control perspective. Because from when I did this before with that smaller machine, I didn't have that particulate issue. I didn't have this covered. I didn't have that covered in any way. And so I'm hopeful that with the right machine, this is going to go much better. So if anybody has any suggestions on what they might change. Oh, the other thing I want to do. So the dust coming from down here is pretty heavy. So there is definitely stuff coming out of here. Like from that video, you can see that the frass is moving through these levels. So my thought is twofold. One, should I sift the frass beforehand? And so all that I'm putting through here is just the larva, and contain that frass a little bit differently. Something to think about. The problem I have with that is that the trays sometimes contain pupa. Pupa are much more susceptible to damage from a sifting harvesting perspective. And so in that top tray, whenever I pour it in, I go much gentler on trays that might have pupa in them. But we'll get there. The other thought is for this setup. So do what I just described with the fan over there, or the dust collector hooked in there, pulling. And the intent would be it's going to mostly pull from right here, because what I'm going to try to do is build, probably lower this tote to the floor. There's no reason it needs to be elevated. I just kind of hacked it into the current thing I had. Put this on the floor, and then from this tray, so let me lift this up. See how there's a tray that this thing sits inside of? This is what's going back and forth. And so connect this, the outlet, right there. You can see it, the hole I cut. Connect that to a lid for one of these, and basically make like a cloth shroud that goes all the way around, so that the frass falling down into this container, which would be lower, there's no open gaps or anything. Reducing, I think what that'll do is reduce the dust that's down there. And then with less dust and stuff to pull from this, like maybe that could be enclosed as well. Got to think about removal of that container, but you know, kind of shore that up a little bit, because that doesn't need to be removed as often, right? It just has to be removed when this thing's full. And again, long term, it'd be great to just auger this thing out of here. I've got a solution for that. We'll get there, but one step at a time. So this will be lower. I have that cloth shroud connected to a lid, right? So I can pop that lid off and leave the shroud and this thing and the lid, leave that in here, remove this, put a new one in, pop it back in, and now the frass getting sifted out of here, there'll be some dust generated. I'm not saying it's going to fix that, but from here down, it'll be in that container. Is that worth the work and the effort? I have the material. It's just a matter of time and effort at this point. And that's where I'm at right now. If you're still here after 9+ minutes, thank you for putting up with all that. And start chewing on potential ideas if you would. Feedback on where I'm headed. Today, I'm just going to be harvesting, getting more motivation, getting dusty and gross and using this thing right now, because I have things that this whole stack here needs to be harvested, sifted, sorted. And so I'll be doing that and thinking some more about this. But if you have any thoughts, throw them in the comments. I would love to hear them. Thank you.